great addictions: heroin and a monthly salary. So, a serial entrepreneur, what does that mean? I don't care how large your net worth is or how rich you are. I don't care whether you're the top hedge fund manager at Berkshire Hathaway. If somebody has to tell you when to be at work, what to wear, and how to behave, I don't believe you're a completely free person. You're not actually rich. And that's why I wanted to unpack these two words for you today: serial entrepreneur. That's how Ben introduced me as well. And that's the answer I give to anyone who asks me the question, "Hey, Zach, what do you do?" And intrinsically, that's what doing what I do means to me. It means I'm a serial entrepreneur. I firmly believe that 40-hour work weeks are a relic of the Industrial Revolution that we are rapidly outgrowing. Solopreneurs and entrepreneurs function like athletes who train and sprint, then rest and reassess. And as our society continues to steamroll into the future, machines might still be working 9 to 5, but humans will not be. We simply aren't meant to work that 9 to 5. So, what am I? What's a serial entrepreneur? Here's my definition. A serial entrepreneur is an individual who is always working, but what looks like work to others feels like play to her or him. And rather than renting out time as an employee, a serial entrepreneur takes equity as an owner, investor, or shareholder and assumes all of the risks and rewards of a given business venture, idea, or good or service offered for sale. So even though I'm always working, work is play for me. And that's how I know I'm hard to compete against, because I'm just playing 16 to 18 hours a day. And if someone wants to compete with me, they're going to have to work very, very hard to win, because they're not going to do it 16 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, the way I play as I work. So before I get into some of the lessons, I kind of wanted to talk about the story of my journey, because I think it may be helpful and insightful for you as well. And I have heard it said that your real resume is just a catalog of all of your suffering. In fact, if you look back on your deathbed, of all the interesting things you'll probably ever do in your life, they'll likely largely be centered around the sacrifices you've made and the hard things that you did. Venture capitalist and philosopher Naval Ravikant believes nothing worthwhile in life comes without pain and suffering of some level. So if you're looking for meaning, you must do hard things to create deep, lasting meaning. And being a serial entrepreneur for me is a large key to where I derive tremendous meaning from my life. Now, the following is oversimplified, of course, but as I've gotten older, I've realized life is short-lived, it's fleeting, and we die. And recently I came upon a wonderful quote by Confucius, and that's why he's on the picture here. And this type of wisdom for me was pretty incredible. And it went something like this: every man has two lives, and his second life starts when he realizes he has just one. We all have two lives. Our second life starts when we realize we have just one. And that wisdom was shut the music off, Quake book type of reading for me. So hopefully, as I share my story with you today and share some of the lessons I've learned, you'll have that wake up call. If you needed one, or if you're already halfway there, perhaps you'll be incredibly motivated to realize you could leave life right now. That's what Marcus Aurelius, the last great Roman emperor, said. So what are you going to do immediately following my presentation to live your best life ever? As an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, whatever you are, as the great ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, how long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? Okay, now let's talk about kind of what I did. Now, the beginning of my story fits perfectly into the solopreneur niche in this business. I was a solopreneur. I had been a consultant, and as Ben said in my introduction, I'd never had a real job for anybody. I'd always worked on my own. I'd always kind of been on my own, working as an entrepreneur, never having a real job. I had mentors, I had other people that I worked with and that helped me, but I kind of always felt the drive to be an entrepreneur. But I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I mean, I was the kid selling snow cones and door to door. I mean, I was at soccer tournaments selling snow cones. I was mowing lawns, doing all the typical stuff that you kind of hear in a lot of these entrepreneurial success stories. And I didn't know what it was called, though. I just thought it was fun. I mean, I was a spreadsheet guy too back in the day when maybe spreadsheets weren't as ubiquitous as they are. And eventually, all those spreadsheets and everything led me to think, man, I'm making $50 an hour and my friends are working, making $8 an hour, $7 an hour, whatever the hourly minimum wage was back then. And I thought there's something more to this. And so I came home from an LDS mission, and I had a friend who was doing really, really well. And I said, what are you doing? And I came over to his mansion and we talked for a day became a week became a month became a quarter, and he liked me and I liked him, and we started a business together. And that business ultimately became very successful. We were selling software and we had a launch, and one day we made over $1 million. Kind of like an Apple launch where they launch a new product and they sell billions of dollars of products. Ours, we sold 1 million. And it was all through internet marketing. Back in the day when Russell Brunson didn't have his funnels, when email marketing was fairly new, all of that stuff we were kind of cutting edge and early pioneers of. And it was incredibly successful. And it wasn't what I loved, though. That particular business wasn't the most exciting thing that I ever did. And so I sold the business. I sold the equity to the friend and started my own business, which was called Start Doing Business. And Start Doing Business took what I learned from that business and just applied it more broadly across anybody who wanted to bring an idea to life. I just said, you know what, if you want to start a business, let me show you how I did it. And eventually, Start Doing Business, because at the time I was actually finishing a degree from Weber State University. And so I kind of had an accounting background. And my accounting background led me to charge like an attorney or a lawyer on retainer. And as I did that, I ran across a client, Earl and Brenda Brundage, as you can see in that little picture there, who did not have the money to pay for my retainer fees. And they said, hey, have you heard of this thing called Kickstarter? Have you heard of this thing called rewards-based crowdfunding? And honestly, at the time I hadn't. And they said, well, how about you help us raise money for this product? It was called the Sport. It's an attachable magnetic running wallet. And we'll help you by paying you a percentage of all the money raised. And I think they paid me like 35% of all the money raised. Well, I was already pretty successful at the time. And I said, all right, let's go for it. And I went for it. And in less than 35 days, we raised them $115,111, as you can see from that picture. And suddenly everybody says, how did this mid 50s couple out of South Ogden, Utah, raise over $100,000 in just 30 something days for this crazy new product? And then a lot of people wanted to know how we did it. And very quickly, I learned that we are living in an age of infinite leverage. And because of that, the impact of great decision making when you take action is much higher than ever before. And at Funded Today, I was living proof of this technological empowerment coming to fruition. And this was just a list of some of the products that we've raised money for. And then, of course, the fame came. We got featured across a lot of national news outlets. We got called the Crowdfunding Kings. They made a cool little picture. I wrote a book. You can still find the book on Amazon. It's kind of like everything that we have done to raise over $368 million. And it was exciting. It was cool. And like I said, when I started out this presentation, we had raised $368,305,744 as of last night when I was putting the final touches on this presentation. And it's been quite the roller coaster. Now, as Ben said, I've got 12 businesses that I'm running right now. So I took a lot of the money that I made from some of my initial business successes and put together a lot of other companies and continued to expand my serial entrepreneurial lessons. So today, 20 lessons I learned along the way that I think can help anybody seeking to be a solopreneur, small business owner, whatever you want to be. I believe these principles continue to positively impact all of the businesses that I'm running. And most importantly, I think they holistically harmonize. They beautifully blend into my personal life too. So with no further ado, lesson number 1. And it's very simple. Solopreneurship is in the blood. It's not for everyone, and that's okay. I think a lot of times you hear everybody talking about how amazing it is to be an entrepreneur and how it's the dream life and what are you doing? Why are you working for the man? All those sorts of things. But quite frankly, you need those people to have a successful organization. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur, and it's not for everybody. You have to work really, really hard, to feel like you can even be an entrepreneur. And often it never gets easier. You have to be persistent. You have to embrace and even love change. And those are difficult things to do. A lot of people just like the consistency, day in, day out type of stuff. I mean, I'll give you an example. I flew out on a private jet from Provo to Missoula the day before yesterday, and I was looking at a 120 condo unit we're looking at doing with my real estate investment fund, Black Arch Capital. And I didn't get home until 2:00 a.m. last night. Then I was at my construction company, RM Mills Construction, from 7:45 a.m. until about 6:30 p.m. And then, sorry, I had a little cutout there. And then I went to a play with my wife. I came home and I was up past midnight putting together some touches on the presentation. It's not always just about the hustle, but 40 per hours per week sometimes just doesn't cut it, at least not at first. So if you want to really make it big, And again, I'm not necessarily a fan of that hustle and grind entrepreneur that you see on the internet, but sometimes you've still got to be willing to sacrifice quite a bit. And I think that's important to understand. It doesn't always get easier. I'm into this. I mean, I'm 34 years old now. I'm into this for a very long time. And some days are still not very easy. Okay, lesson number 2, voracious curiosity. I want to start this one with a question. How many books have you ordered in the past month? Now, in all actuality, the number of books you read is just a vanity metric. Learning must never stop. I'm a voracious learner with voracious curiosity. That just means I devour everything. Everybody will tell you I'm always reading, I'm always looking at something. It's just kind of what I love. And I think that's, people always ask, well, what do you do? How do you do it? And I say, be a dream student, whether you're in college or high school or anything like that, doesn't matter. The point is, you need to have that insatiable desire to want to know things because the world is constantly changing. Everything is moving faster than ever before. And if you can stay on top of that, you have a huge chance to win. The reason I won with Funded Today was because I was early on Kickstarter. The reason I won with real estate is because I capitalized on real estate before this huge takeoff we had. The reason I've won on private money lending, the reason I've won on my mint where I make gold and silver, all of these trends are because of reading and things that I've done and to satisfy that intellectual curiosity that I have. But again, it can be any type of learning, audiobooks, podcasts, articles, and it's not a rush. You don't have to just read hundreds of books. I no longer read just to say, I read tons of books, though I still do read a lot. Now I just read to satisfy my voracious, intellectually curious mind. So ask yourself this when you're considering reading a book or a blog post or even listening to a podcast, because I think this is how you can kind of determine if this is going to be worth it for you or not. Would I still read or listen to this if I could tell nobody else about it? Would I still find it fascinating? Then read only those things to which you answer yes to that question. I think this is going to help you. All right, lesson number 3, find a mentor and work for a good boss. As you heard, I have never really had a real job or worked for anybody else, but I have had mentors that have become partners or joint ventures or affiliate relationships, and all of those things have been incredible for me. Some of the best partnerships that I've had have given me incredible wisdom. I remember working with James Edward. He was a hedge fund manager for John Henry, the owner of the Boston Red Sox. And I still have some of his emails that he wrote me when I was going through difficult times. And I'll go back and I'll read them, a couple times a year because it's like an incredible book for me. And I listen to what he said and I listen to that wisdom and it helps me get through those difficult and tough times. You need to find a mentor too. And you need to find one like yesterday, someone that you can rely upon that isn't trying to even charge you money. I mean, you can pay them if you need to, if you really like them and test them out, but find somebody who you can go to, message them through a text message, give them a call, talk to them, respect their time, try to provide value for them in every single relationship. I think Gary Vaynerchuk said something like this, but he's always trying to give like 51%. If he knows if he's given 51% to the relationship and the other person can never give more than him, then he finds that to be a great relationship. You should try to do the same thing with what you're doing as you're fostering relationships. And if you don't want to be an entrepreneur right now, find a good boss. Work for a really good boss. If you don't have a good boss now, help that boss become better. They appreciate constructive criticism if they want to become a good boss. And if they don't, get out of there. What are you doing? We need to be living our best life right now because this is the only time we've got to do big things, to live the life that we want to live. And finding a mentor is just so, so important. I mean, I can go back to college and I remember at Weber State, I had Dr. Ryan Pace, who was really cool, Dr. Hoffman, a marketing professor, Alex Lawrence gave me business advice, different people in my life. I mean, I came home and started that business. Consider your mentors, go back to them. I have 4 or 5 people that a couple times per month, I will call, I will text, I will message on Facebook or Instagram or somewhere, and I'll ask them questions and I'll talk to them and I'll provide feedback and they'll provide feedback for me. Because guess what? Entrepreneurship is lonely, especially when we're taking it and calling it solopreneurship. It means you're by yourself, right? You need a mentor. You need somebody that's going to help you get through those difficult times. That's why a lot of times I say get a partner in a business. Don't get 5 partners, don't get 10, but get 1 or 2. Sometimes it'll help you. All right. Going along the same Going along kind of the same line of thinking, connection is everything. Networking is so important. Just coming to this event and setting aside, 45 minutes of your time to listen to me and the other speakers is important because you never know what questions you're going to get answered, who you're going to meet, what's going to lead to a lunch or a dinner meeting, who you're going to meet in person, what sorts of partnerships you're going to make. You don't want to be doing that every day. You don't attend meetings every single day. It's pointless to do that. But once or twice a month, set aside something like this. Attend them. Learn from them. Get the information, get the contact information of the speakers and the people that you liked, and stay in touch with them. Because again, connection is everything. Most of my success, especially now, because it continues to kind of go like a wildfire, is because of the people that I know who can now open more and more doors. People will say, Zach, who's an attorney you know? Zach, who's an accountant you know? Zach, what can I do here? What can I do here? And because of all the businesses and all the talking and all the networking and everything I've done, I almost feel like I have an answer for who to connect you with anything you need to do, and really, really good people as well. And you want to be the same way. I remember a story by Henry Ford. He's getting sued for something because they think he doesn't understand his business well enough, and he's in court. And they say, you don't know anything about the Model T Ford. You have no idea about any of this sort of stuff. And they say, well, Mr. Ford, what is your rebuttal to that? And he says, you know what? I've got a phone on my desk with 9 little buttons, and I can push those 9 little buttons, and I can get anybody at any time to do anything for me that I don't understand. And then the judge basically said, a case dismissed. He's smarter than all of us. I think the same thing can be true for you. I don't know everything about everything. I know a little bit about a lot, but my connections allow me to reach that expert level on a lot of things because of who I've partnered with and who I know. And I think you can do the same things. All right, this one I love. This is probably such an exciting story. So I don't know if you can see this image. Hopefully it's big enough. But this is Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson, if you know anything about baseball, is on third base. But guess what's interesting about this picture? Jackie Robinson is stealing home, and the batter is not out of the batting box. That's because the pitcher still has the ball in his hand. Jackie Robinson is stealing home while the pitcher has the ball in his hand and has not yet pitched. That is unheard of in baseball, and he actually was safe on that particular play. And that is why lesson number 5 is just go for it. Fail fast. Take it to market. Stop being hesitant. Good is better than perfect. Case in point, this is a product that we worked with several years ago, 2014. They had raised $190,000. They only had about 100 hours left, 4 or 5 days. They needed to raise $300,000 on Kickstarter. This was for some headphones, some fancy headphones, noise canceling, and all kinds of smart technology and things. And they came to us and they said, it's all or nothing funding. We've raised 190,000. Our goal is 300,000. If we don't raise 300,000, we're going to lose 190,000 we've already raised, and we have a few days to do it. Can you do it for us? And we looked at it and we thought about it and we said, I don't know. We ran the numbers. We saw what we were going to have to spend. It was risky because we were going to lose 50 or 60,000 bucks if it didn't work out, that we would never see back because that's how much we were going to have to spend. And eventually we went for it. We were like Jackie Robinson, and so glad we did. We didn't do it recklessly. We did it strategically. We had spreadsheets, we had data, we had analytics, we knew what we thought it was going to do, and then we went for it. And 5 days later, we raised them $325,208, and their project was fully funded. Go for it. Fail fast. Stop being hesitant. You have nothing to lose. And guess what? The younger you are, the less fear you should have, because I'm getting older. I need to start being careful. I've got a daughter and a wife. You may be younger, but guess what? 34 is not even that old. A lot of the multimillionaires I know didn't become them until their 50s. Take calculated risks now and go for it because it's worth it. Entrepreneurship is incredible, and failing isn't bad. In fact, lesson number 6 is one failure does not yourself a failure make. These belts that you see on the left were a complete failure. That laptop stand you see on the right was this particular gentleman's answer to the failed belts. The one project completely failed. We tried everything we could do. Didn't raise him any money, so they had to cancel the project. A few months later, he had pivoted and he invented this laptop stand. And this laptop stand is still famous today. You've probably seen it. A lot of people still use it. It's all over the world. We raised him hundreds of thousands of dollars for the laptop stand because he didn't think he was a failure. He said, you know what? Nobody likes my belts. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. You never know what's going to work. No one has the magic 8-ball. You cannot divine success. A lot of people think you can. The key is to just keep pivoting, to just keep changing, and to reinvent yourself as much as possible, just like I've done. I've started out in so many different things, and today what I'm doing is entirely different than what I was doing even a decade ago. I believe in product validation, and that's why crowdfunding is so powerful and unique. We have so many products like that, even funded today. One failure does not yourself a failure make. All right, lesson number 7. This one is so important. We see this time and time again, and I'm showing the laptop stand again too. The other product on the right is another product as well that was interesting. Your baby is not necessarily going to be loved. And you have to be able to accept that and have another baby. Now, it's different when it's your own offspring. So I'm not telling you to go and kill your kids here. But in business, you've got to separate the two. I have met thousands of entrepreneurs over the last 10, 11 years who come to me with what they believe is the most amazing idea ever. And sometimes I believe them. And other times I'm like, I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, I've seen a lot of ideas. I've probably been pitched just as much as anybody on Shark Tank. In fact, a lot of our clients are on Shark Tank. We probably have more people on Shark Tank than anybody else in the world. And so I've seen a lot of things. But the one thing I've seen that leads to more failure than anything else is people's idea of success rather than what success is. Your first idea may be a failure. Your second idea might be a failure. In fact, this laptop stand story, I simplified it. He had 5 failures before he got to the laptop stand. He had 5 more projects that did not do well before the laptop stand succeeded. The same may be the case with you. The key is to be quick. The key is to be failing fast. And then if you're committed to that success and not your idea of success, you have a so much greater chance of being successful. I still know some people 7 years later who are still trying to run their business. They made like $5,000 a year. I think they must be borrowing on their credit lines or their credit cards or from their family. I don't know. They don't make any money and they haven't given up on the idea because they believe it's going to be successful. And I could be completely wrong, but do I want to spend 7 years of my life making $5,000 with the hopes of one day maybe it's going to be $1 billion? I think you can know very quickly whether something's going to be successful. And they don't have the traction, they don't have the audience, their margins are terrible. There's so many things about this particular product that I would say to walk away from, let alone the fact that I don't even know how they're paying their bills. So again, committed to your success, not your idea of success. And that just means looking at metrics, looking at targets. When you see something that wins, you scale quickly. What did I do at Funded today? I had one product, the Roo Sport. Suddenly hundreds of people knocking down my door. I knew I was onto something. I didn't do anything to get those hundreds of people coming to my inbox, finding my website. They came to me, and then I knew I was onto something. If you notice triggers like that, act quickly because it does not last forever. All right, lesson number 8. I love this one. It's called Pareto's principle. He was an Italian economist, and he was looking at the way different things work, and he pretty much found out that everything is a component of 80-20, meaning 20% of what you do is going to yield 80% of your results. So where can you be spending 20% of your time so you're free, you have freedom 80%, so that you can have 80% of the results? Doesn't mean you're going to get 100% of the results. A lot of people are doing it all backwards. They're putting in 80% of their time on things and yielding 20. Too many trivial tasks. 20% of the results. Where can you focus on the few vital tasks of your life, personal, financial, whatever, where it takes 20% of your time? For investments, perhaps it's just setting up automatic deposits and dollar cost averaging into the market. For business, perhaps it's hiring a chief operating officer and a CEO to manage different aspects of your business, or hiring an assistant if you're a solopreneur to manage some of those things that you're doing that you shouldn't be doing. And you're like, well, it's going to be expensive. It's going to cost me money. Every time I've hired somebody, I've made 10 times more money than when I kept doing it myself. The same is going to be true for you. You're going to be scared. You're going to be worried. You're going to be nervous. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Go for it. You can always get rid of the person if it doesn't work out, and you're going to be out a couple $1,000. But if you want to grow, if you want freedom, then you need to apply the principle of Pareto's principle. It's very important. And it's the same thing in every single business. Who are your best salespeople? Chances are, if you got 10 salespeople, 2 or 3 of them are going to be your best. The others aren't. You can find that, and you can run lean organizations. That's going to help. Even the biggest companies in the world. You think of Amazon. You want to know 80-20? AWS. Amazon's AWS version is absolutely 80-20. 80% of the revenue of Amazon is essentially from AWS, which is their server and hosting division. All right, lesson number 9, market size matters. This one's really important too, because if you're out spending time trying to figure out what kind of business you're going to start or how you're going to be a solo entrepreneur, what are you going to do? The market size will dictate how much your company can ever possibly make. Same is true with Funded today. We were in an industry that was about $1 billion per year, but it was not growing anymore. I mean, it's not growing anymore now. And that matters to us. If we keep our same market share, we're not growing. My business partner in Funded today his brothers have a company, and they've pretty much maintained the same exact size every single year for their supplement company because they won't ever grow past their current size unless they find a way to get into new markets. My business partner's other company, Liberty Action Center is a petition for nonprofits, and it's about a $1 million industry or smaller. All of these types of things are things you want to consider. So how do you determine market size? It's very simple. You go on Google, you do some research. There's lots of tools. You can pay somebody to do a business plan, a market analysis. I just did a market analysis of Tremont. I paid somebody $7,500. It took them 4 or 5 weeks, and they analyzed an entire development that we're going to be trying to do out in that city in Utah. The market size is always going to dictate how much your company can ever possibly make. And if you don't understand that, get an expert, hire somebody who's the very best. It's going to be worth your money. You might think, oh, $7,500. Maybe that's a lot. Maybe you think that's cheap. Either way, it's incredibly cheap because now I've got an 800-page report that I can use to wholesale that property, to talk to somebody else about it, to partner with other people. I've already done it. I've already got an acquisition manager looking at this project, possibly making an offer by the end of this week on a project that I simply just bought the land for, hired the best person in the state of Utah to do the report on, waited 5 weeks, paid him his $7,500, and now I have an asset with all kinds of backing and all kinds of details that lets the right person, whether that's me or somebody I partner with or somebody I sell to, take advantage of something that's very good. And it was just a market analysis. That matters to you so much. If you're just doing something, today I advise you to stop immediately, look at where your market size is at, look at your last 2 or 3 years of how much money you've made. And if you're brand new to it, even better, just look right now and see if you are in the right space. And if you're not in the right space, if you're too broad, dial in a bit. Internet marketing is huge. Rewards-based crowdfunding is huge, but it's smaller. Notice how I took something huge and made myself the very best in the world about it. Funded Today is the best crowdfunding agency in the world. We always have been, and we've raised more money than anybody else. I cannot say that about internet marketing. There's people way bigger than us, but we are the very best at rewards-based crowdfunding on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. So market size matters. Along that same principle is the star principle. Like I said, Funded Today is no longer growing. Why is Funded Today no longer growing? Because a star is being in an industry growing 10% plus per year and being the market leader. That's where you want to be. That's where you want to invest. That's where you want to get a job if you're getting a job. Even if you're not going to be an entrepreneur, work for a star company. You're going to get more bonuses, more stock options, and lots of other things like that. Right now, we're a cash cow. We're a leader in a low growth industry with Funded Today. But my gold and silver business, where we sell physical investment grade gold and silver, is in a high growth industry, and we're the leader of it. That's a star. Figure out where you're at on this little matrix. Are you a cash cow? That's great, but you better be careful because cash cows has low growth, and low growth means declining revenue. And declining revenue means you're not going to get investors. You're not going to make as much money, and every single year is going to be harder and harder to maintain that market share because a cash cow is going to attract competitors, just like a high growth industry is going to attract competitors as well. And competitors in a capitalistic society are going to limit the amount of money that you can charge. They're going to make competition more even, and you're not going to be able to make as much money. So invest in stars, and if you're a cash cow, analyze that position and go from there. All right, lesson number 11. Margins matter. Remember I talked about markets matter most? Well, margins matter as well. A lot of people that I know are running businesses making no money. Like I told you that example, the 5,000. I had a chance to buy a swig or a fizz or one of those drink places. Everybody thinks those are the most amazing things ever. Well, perhaps they are. The one I looked to buy was only making $30,000 a year, and they were paying their manager like $32,000. So they weren't even paying their manager very much, and the company was only making, $30,000 per year. Margins just were not good on this particular swig. They weren't charging the right place, or they weren't charging the right whatever. I don't know what it was, but I see this all the time. A lot of people start a business and they're saying, let's sell it for $50. Well, how much does it cost you to make? Well, it costs 40. How are you going to make money on that? You do not have a real business until you can spend money to make money. If you're not able to spend money to make money, you don't have a business. You're a hobby, you're something else. Anyway, this is a good example of some of the companies that have some of the best margins in the world. So you could look at it. Pharmaceuticals, obviously, computer equipment, beverage and tobacco, chemicals. Find yourself on that list and figure out what you can do to improve your margins. Funded Today has incredible margins. In fact, better than everything on this list. A lot of my businesses are better than everything on this list. And that's important because every industry has different margins. You need to know your margins, both for your particular product and your business and your industry at large, so you don't get killed by the competition when they come in. And gross revenue can be very deceptive. I have worked with hundreds of million-dollar campaigns on Kickstarter that literally afterwards start looking to raise venture capital or more angel investing to continue operating. You see them raise $5 million and they cannot fulfill. Coolest Cooler is a great example of that. They raised like 12 or $20 million, I forget. and they still have not been able to deliver and fulfill on all of their coolers. Why? Because even though their product was $500, it cost them 500 to make, and they didn't even factor in shipping. You've got to do things like that. Sometimes, though, we raise money for a $30,000 campaign with 50% margins. So they net $15,000 just after 30 days, and then they're able to take that money and scale. A great example of that is Pop Sockets. Pop Sockets only raised 20,000 bucks or so nearly a decade ago. And now, as of I think 2018-19, they were doing over $200 million in revenue. So a huge success that started on Kickstarter. Lesson number 12, your greatest competition comes from within. What does that mean? Well, look at Amazon. There's a company called Jet. Jet, some of the original co-founders of that company were Amazon employees. Another example is American Express and the Chase Sapphire Reserve. American Express Platinum was kind of like the go-to card for business, and Chase Sapphire had somebody in the company at American Express who started Chase Sapphire and created great competition for them. And actually, American Express Platinum is not as good because of that anymore. Competition from within can be very rough. And at Funded Today, we had the same situation. We had somebody, this was 5 or 6 years ago now, who stole proprietary technology and tried to do a lot of things on their own, and it was very difficult. We had lawsuits, we had non-competes, we had all kinds of things that we had to do to get that rectified, and that person hurt us for a little while. Keep that in mind as you're growing. You might be like I said, you might be a solo entrepreneur, but eventually you'll probably turn that into a very successful business, and some of those earliest closest employees could become your greatest competition. Treat them well, keep them close. It's great to keep those people close, even though sometimes your earliest people are going to be the people that eventually have to part ways with you because they were too close to you, or they didn't understand the vision, or they think they own the business and perhaps they don't. There's those types of things that you have to consider. But for the most part, I always like to keep all of my earliest people around if I can. If they believe in the vision, if they can pivot and change with the times, which is difficult, a lot of them don't. Just yesterday, I had to get rid of another person in one of the companies that was one of the originals because they just didn't get the vision, and I wanted them around so much. But it's a very difficult thing to do for anybody who's an entrepreneur, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out. So again, your greatest competition comes from within. Keep that in mind. Treat your people really well. Take care of them. Give them bonuses. Help them understand that they are a part of this company and you want them to be there and you need them to pivot and change. And they've got to have that entrepreneurial mindset, just like you, or it's not going to work out. All right. This one is huge because there's FOMO, there's fear of missing out. A lot of people talking about crypto. I didn't invest in crypto. I'm losing all this money. Dogecoin, Doggy Coin, whatever you want to call it, Ethereum, Bitcoin, all these things are growing. Everything's going amazing. Now, for some things, the grass is greener. Money doesn't change things, but it's a two-sided coin, a double-edged sword. And that's why I have all these imagery on this particular slide so you can think about it. Any positive has accompanying negatives. You get to choose your hours, and your hours get to choose you, sometimes even 24/7, as the case with my life. But through my life, by and large, I believe happiness can be learned. So learn to be happy before the money comes, before you become rich. And remember, hard work, drive, and perseverance are required to continually stay on top. Now that I'm wealthy and enjoy the 5 freedoms that I call time, finances, health, spirituality, and inner peace, so many things are so much better. But guess what? So many things are still the exact same. And that's not a bad thing. That's okay. Often you don't even know the things you should be grateful for. In fact, until you experience something bad, you don't even realize that the particular something was something that you should have been grateful for or that was ultimately good. Things tend to have a way of working out, even when in the moment they seem so dire. So work through those negative judgments that you may have. The goal as a solopreneur is to have a clear mind. Happy thoughts disappear out of your mind automatically, but negative thoughts linger longer. Learn to smile more, learn to hug more, get some sunlight, vitamin D. Watch your mind all day long. That's the idea of meditation. You can do it 24/7. And that just means to watch your thoughts. Ask yourself often, why am I having that thought? Does that thought serve me? Tongue twister. Does that thought serve me any longer? I believe everybody can be wealthy. It's not a zero sum game. It's a positive sum game. So don't worry about what other people are doing. There aren't any get rich quick schemes. That's just someone else trying to get rich off of you. Keep that in mind. Everybody wants to be wealthy. Everybody wants to be happy, and everybody wants to be fit. And that might seem controversial, but it's true. But here's the good news. All three of those things can be taught, no matter what side of the grass you're on presently. So don't worry about other people. Be happy for them. Be happy for other people's successes. Don't worry about missing out on something. You haven't missed out on anything. I've seen all these trends. Do what you need to do. Focus on what you're doing. Control your thoughts, control your mind, and you're going to be successful. Along those same lines, and this one gave me great comfort. I was talking to a Harvard professor. He was one of our clients, I don't know, 8 years ago, probably at Funded Today, one of the earliest clients. And he said, Zach, perspective is a private experience. And that resonated with me, still does. It's one of the, if you ask anybody in any of my companies who work for me, they'll tell you that. Man, Zach, you say that phrase a lot. Well, I believe in it. You need to find people who see reality very similar to you so that you can be able to interact and have that life that you want to live. And like everybody said, Michelangelo, you're a genius when he painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And he said, if you knew how much work went into it, you wouldn't call it genius. I love this picture here on the bottom left. What's he doing? He's looking at an egg. But what is he painting? A beautiful bird. That's how it is. As a solopreneur and as your empire grows, you basically become a judge. If things grow, you become a judge. You make decisions that half the people hate and half the people like, and sometimes no one likes. Assume the positive, even when it's difficult. There's always two sides to every story, sometimes 10 sides to every story. So I've become more modern on nearly every issue. I tend to ask lots of questions and slow down reaction time on every decision I make. Things don't have to be as fast as the world is moving. I love this one. This is called Blind Man Touch Elephant in Mandarin. It's Mangra Mo Shang. Everybody's on an elephant trying to fill what it is. The one guy fills the tail, says it's a snake. The other guy fills the feet and thinks it's a trunk. Someone else fills down below and they claim it's a turtle. This guy's on the trunk and he thinks it's something else. And then finally, a guy climbs up on top, touches the ears, fills the tusks, reaches out, touches the trunk, fills the body, and he says, you know what? That's an elephant. We need to get that perspective. Don't get into the thought of how lucky is that guy? Well, maybe their margins aren't that good. They had 10 people on their team and a net profit of $50,000 and a net profit of $5,000 each after 8 months. You never know the behind the scenes side of a story. So just keep that perspective in mind. Everybody's going through something, everybody's thinking about something, and most often we're all in this struggle called life and business and entrepreneurship together. All right, next slide. This one I love. This is Marcus Lumanus. He's kind of a role model of mine. I had a chance to meet him a couple times actually, and saw him even at Chick-fil-A when he came to Utah to speak. And we talked for a little bit. He is a billionaire. He was a CEO, I think probably even started Camping World, which is a huge camping brand that sells RVs and different things. And this is why I do what I do. You build great wealth by owning businesses. This is a screenshot of all the different companies that he owned as of a couple years ago. He probably owns even more now. Lawyers and accountants make money by partnering with people, doing people leverage. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos, they own lots of different companies. Half of all millionaires in the entire world are self-employed or own a business. Pretty interesting. Another thing, you hear college kind of dogged on a lot, and I'm not necessarily 100% pro college, but around 80% of millionaires are college graduates. But if you want to build great wealth, I do believe in diversification. But before you get into that, even my story is a good example of that. Almost all of these guys, I mean, look at Bill Gates, Microsoft, look at Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, look at Jeff Bezos, Amazon. But then they have all of these other ventures that happened after. Look at Zach Smith, Funded Today, and look at all of the things that are coming after. Focus really, really strongly for a long period of time on that business that is incredibly successful for you. And once that business is successful and it's running on its own or with very little management from you, take the wealth that you've earned from those businesses and diversify and continue to spread your influence if you want great wealth. And great wealth to me means great freedom. And that's why I do what I do. All right. This one's huge. Going back to more like a solo entrepreneurship stage, nearly everything in entrepreneurship is salesmanship and negotiation. I can't tell you how many meetings and sales calls and other things that happen. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know how to build a website. I don't understand the tech. I can't build the funnel. I can't do this. I can't do that. I need a software program. I need this. Almost all of those things can be solved with salesmanship and negotiation too. There's some pretty funny things here. Our study concludes that this is the percentage of our customers who will buy from us without any effort whatsoever on our part. 0%. He's right. When you look at it that way, it's not so bad. Turns the sales thing the other way around. So anyway, that's another example of perspective as a private experience, I guess you could say. But again, almost everything I've found with entrepreneurship, and I'm good at a few other things too, not just sales and negotiation, but by and large, those two skills have been incredibly helpful for me. Read books like 80/20 Sales and Negotiation by Richard Koch. Read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, the FBI hostage negotiator. Memorize and internalize those books. They will help you in every single facet of your business and your personal life, so many other types of things. I think those are the types of things that a lot of people, and if you can't do those things, guess what? You got to hire somebody who can. You are not going to succeed in business if you do not have good salesmanship and negotiation. And I'm not talking about that shady car salesman stuff where you trick people. I'm talking about triple win: a win for me as the salesperson, a win for the person buying, and a win for everybody else who are involved in the middle of that transaction. Okay? All right. Lesson number 17. This one may be a little controversial, but let me tell you why. Charity can't be your crutch. It never works. Launch a venture that stands on its own, then bring a charitable element into it. And the reason I ask this is because I have a lot of people want me to raise money for a lot of things. But guess what? Nobody knows who they are. They don't trust their charity. They don't trust what they're doing because they have no background. They have no experience and they don't have a successful business and they're trying to raise money for a really good cause. I mean, almost every charity is generally altruistic, right? But guess what? Doesn't work. Hardly ever works. So what I found in my business is people launch a venture product with the charity as the lead marketing angle, and then they always fail. I thought of it like this, and I'm going back to Nassim Taleb again. I really like this guy. He has a good model for thinking about this. He said, with my family, I'm a communist. With my close friends, I'm a socialist. At the state level of politics, I'm a Democrat. At higher levels, I'm a Republican. And at the federal levels, I'm a libertarian. I think we can run the same way in business. Make your product stand on its own, then add that charitable element or arm to it. Humans are inherently selfish. Take care of their selfish interests first by giving them a great product, and then make the buying decision even easier by adding an element of charity. The people who do a ton for charity first made their money in for profit ventures. Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, Google, who is doing internet for third world countries now. Every single one of those people are doing amazing things for lots of different people around the world, but they didn't start that way. Build that brand name, build that angle of trust, and then launch your charitable for profit venture or add that angle to your product. You'll be much more successful. Lesson number 18, this is SLCRR. This is a SLC because of Salt Lake City. It's not that great of an acronym, but we use it in everything we do. And this is how to identify massive breakthrough opportunities. Anytime you feel stuck, anytime you're in a rut, anytime you're wondering what's going on, this has saved me. And I'll give you an example. So SLCR just stands for S. What additional services could you offer? L, how do we increase inbound leads? C, how do we close more clients? R, how can we generate even greater results for higher profits from our clients? R, how can we increase repeat clients? Every single one of these is a meditation exercise where you think about it and then you have silence, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. Think about it, see what happens, and then write down all the ideas that come to you. For me, last year in the middle of the pandemic, one of my companies was struggling. I did this exercise. I hired somebody who I had not seen for about 12 years who was very good at email marketing. And last month, that particular person that I hired for a particular division in my company did over $550,000 in revenue because of the R. How can we generate even greater results for higher profits from our clients? And paradoxically, perhaps that increased repeat clients such that every single person is now wanting to hire us because of how effective that new email marketing news channel has become. Now, what did I do? I said, what can we do to generate greater results for our clients? Who do I know that can do that? Let me talk to them. And that conversation with some sales and negotiation led to this person quitting what he was doing. He quit an entire boutique business that he was running online pretty successfully, and he joined my team. And guess how much I paid him last month? $42,000, worth every single penny. He's making 30 to 40,000 bucks a month for me right now. He was making much less than that in his other business, and he took a risk. His whole thing was a performance-based model. I didn't even offer him a salary to start. He believed in it. He saw what I was doing, and because of this exercise, that particular company had its best April ever. Lesson number 19. Entrepreneurship has the greatest risk to return factor of anything you'll undertake ever. Prove me wrong. You can be completely poor. I mean, my story truly, a lot of people tell different stories. My dad was a school teacher. My mom raised 6 kids. That is not very much money. But because of the world that we live in today, because of infinite leverage, Because of the internet economy, you can have incredible success as an entrepreneur. And like I said, the younger you are, the more risk you should take. Very simple math. The median income that when I checked for this presentation was 60,000, and this is the median. Obviously, if you do the average, it's even lower. What if you made $5 million in a year? Simple math says 5 million divided by 60,000 is 83 years. I made $5 million a year. You can net more as an entrepreneur in 1 year than 83 years of a $60,000 per year job. Isn't that worth the risk? Isn't that worth the freedom? Isn't that worth the incredible amount of happiness that it can give when you have those freedoms in your life because of what true wealth and financial success and empowerment can give you? And that's the lesson that I like to preach to people. It's not as scary as you think. And the more risk you can take, the greater the reward is going to be. And the younger you start, the greater the reward is too. It's kind of like what Warren Buffett said as far as compound interest. You have compound interest in yourself as well. So keep that in mind. Everybody preaches entrepreneurship who's kind of against it as a scary, risky venture. Yes, that's true. Yes, it's a lot of work. Yes, it's incredibly hard. Yes, it never gets easier. But I think that risk to return ratio is still better than any other thing you can do. And guess what? Working a 9 to 5 is actually still risky, especially nowadays. It's not nearly as secure as it ever used to be. All right, final lesson. Love this from Theodore Roosevelt, and I'll just read it to you. Entrepreneurs shape the world. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So that is his place. So that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat. I hope this presentation helped you. I hope you will go ahead and take some massive action. And thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks, Ben, for the opportunity to speak. Any questions? Looks like I got about 10 minutes.
Thank you, Zach. Yes, I haven't seen any questions in the Q&A quite yet, but if anybody has questions, go ahead and put those in the chat, and Zach would be happy to answer some of those. I did see one come in earlier from Lara asking about margins, about
Okay.
housing. Is housing even lower than food? What would you say to that?
Hmm. I don't know. You know, that's a good question. I mean, for me, not in terms of real estate, housing, and different things. We're always trying to have about a 23% margin. So if we sell a house for $100,000, then we'd want to have a 23% margin on that. But yeah, housing didn't make it on the list, so I just wanted to check. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, for me, from what and I don't have a lot of food businesses. I looked at, and that's why the margins are so low on food from a lot of the food businesses that I've looked to get into. I'm actually in the process of acquiring probably 3 to 5 different restaurant food businesses, and I'm putting together a syndication for 8 or 9 more. But those ones are more franchise model, and I think the scalability is there because of the shared economies at scale. So one particular restaurant business with no business experience is a very rough business to run with very tight margins. So food, groceries, they're some of the lowest on the totem pole, if that helps.
Yes, thank you for answering that. Another question just came in from Jenny. She says, are there any business deals you have sold that you look back on and wish you would have done differently?
Yes. So one story I didn't tell in this presentation was the story of Funded Today. Funded Today at its peak was about 3, 4 years ago. I forget the exact time. I got an offer to sell my company for $47 million. And they signed an LOI, which is called a letter of intent. And I flew to San Francisco, went to the tallest tower in the city. Housatonic Partners was the name of the company. It was doing the acquisition. And 9 months of due diligence. We're talking about just completely making me naked. And by the time it was all said and done, their offering was like 17 million or something. And I said no to it. I don't regret saying no to it, but it would have been the perfect story of success in the sense of, I mean, Funded Today is still incredibly successful, but getting a $47 million exit at the end would have been wonderful. Why did they change their offering? It's because I did not sell at the right time. So if you're looking to perhaps have some advice or wisdom in that regard, I would say if you want that exit story, build your business from the very beginning such that it can be sold. I wasn't even thinking about selling my business because I was doing what I loved and it was exciting, it was fun, and we were making tons of money anyway. But when the offer came, it was pretty exciting. It was a roller coaster ride for 9 months of my life. But the reason they decided not to buy it was because I sold at its peak. And I should have sold 5 months before the peak, and they would have bought the peak, which would have been an incredible return for me. Good question. By the way, if anybody wants these slides, you can get them right here. I just created a link. I put them on SlideShare, so anybody could grab those. A little bit about our services, crowdfunding. That's how you can get me directly. My book's just on Amazon if you want to read that. And if you'd like to hire us for anything, that's our email address. So you could take a picture of that slide or copy and paste those link. I should have made the other one a little simpler, but the website's just fundedtoday.com or funded.today. Any other questions?
Perfect. Yeah, we'll leave it open for maybe 1 or 2 more minutes in case there are any other questions.
All right.
You can put them either in the Q&A or the chat. Either one works.
And I think this will be recorded as well, right, Ben?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so if any of you, missed some of it or you want to review what Zach was teaching us today, then you can get access to all of this through the VIP pass. Then you could just go back to Hey Summit and click on that and get that value. Here's one more question that came in. At what point do you recommend folks turn a hobby business into a real business?
Good question. I think I'd say just follow the Funded Today model in that case. That was a hobby business when I decided to take on the Roost Sport as a client. And because it was so successful, suddenly I had people knocking down my door to do the same type of thing that I did for the Roost Sport for them. And so I would say just look at the key indicators. When you have 100 people knocking down your door and you want that type of life, go for it. But if you're not having that intrinsic demand for your product or service, then perhaps you can stay hobby. You'll have those market forces guide you in the right direction if you're staying active and you have your, like right now, the market forces are not telling me to go do more things in crowdfunding. I'm kind of just maintaining what I'm doing. And that's why I have so many other businesses in different sectors that are more of those stars rather than those cash cows. So look at that. You have to kind of maybe feel it. And maybe I do that well. Maybe it's luck. Maybe it's a bit of both. I think it is that curiosity and that reading that helps with that as well. But definitely start as a hobby business. You don't have to risk it all if you've got something else going, but then test the waters. If you've got something that you're selling, post it on Facebook. And another example was my private money lending business. I did a deal and it was pretty successful for like $300,000 and I made 10 grand in 60 days or something. And I said, this was cool. So I posted on Facebook, hey, I've got some money that I'm lending out on real estate deals. Anybody interested? And 100 people messaged me and I ran out of money to lend. So you can do little tests like that too. Hey, I invented this really cool craft. What do you guys think about it? If 20 people say that's awesome, I want one, well, maybe you're onto something. Do the smallest test you can do. I call it an MVP, minimum viable product. It's from Eric Ries's book, Lean Startup. And that will help you know where to go and what direction you should be taking that hobby, whether it just stays a hobby or it becomes a more legitimate business.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for that, Zach, and for your presentation, sharing so many practical and valuable pieces of advice. We really appreciate your time. I'm just going to put once more in the chat for everybody if you want to attend this networking event that we're having in about 5 minutes. We'd love to see you there. Otherwise, thank you, and you guys have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Have a good day.